something one of my mentors told me is that it's selfish of you to hold your knowledge in and not share it with the world, right? Because we have so many, like part of one of the core values or like pillars of my business is to bring out all the gifts and skills people have from the accumulation of experiences they've had in their lives. So I've had, at one point during my master's, I was working 5 jobs. They don't even have to be 10 years ahead of you. Just, you only have to be 10 steps ahead of your ideal client to be 100% service to them. So once you have clients or you've had like your first clients, your business is set up, at least the basics, then what? Right? Then you feel unsupported and you're like, you need that community and like that sounding board or someone there, right? Like in the lab, you have your colleagues. You could just turn around to your friend and just ask like, oh, what did you do in that experiment? Or, like, can you help me? But as an entrepreneur, especially working from home, you don't have that person, you don't have anybody sitting next to you most of the time.
Turn this up, turn this up.
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality.
Hi, I'm Paul Faronbi, aka IncrediPaul, and welcome to IncrediPaul Leadership, where we learn to become the most incredible versions of ourselves by learning from each other. First off, if you're only listening to this episode, I want you to know that you can also watch it on YouTube. Regardless if you're listening or watching the show, thank you so much for your support. Today, I have the honor of having Rosalba Lopez on the show. She's a former academic who built a 6-figure medical communications agency from scratch, and she now coaches STEM entrepreneurs to do the same. Her mission is to help smart professionals own their value and build businesses that grow sustainably. So that was just a little bit about you, Rosalba, but how about you introduce yourself the way you would do it?
Oh, so thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So I have a PhD in biomedicine and biotechnology. Pretty much midway through my PhD, I decided to search for alternative careers. And that's where I discovered medical writing. I was fortunate enough to land a retainer client pretty much immediately after finishing my PhD. So and it's just grown from there. I've now been a medical writer for about 5 years. And just last year, I founded an online education platform called the FLAS Foundation, where, like you said, I now coach other medical writers how to scale their businesses.
That's amazing. My mistake, Dr. Rosalba Lopez, because that's really important. You put a lot of work into that. So talk to me more about, you said like in your PhD program and you wanted to pivot more into the medical writing. Like talk to me more how that even happened.
How that happened?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes going into a PhD, you have certain expectations, right? Like we all have that academic dream of doing the PhD, the postdoc, becoming a PI, and then running your own lab. And then you get to a point and you realize, well, maybe this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. Sometimes you see the behind the scenes of running a lab, and it's not everyone's cup of tea. And so, yeah, I started looking for alternative careers to still have or make a big impact in people's lives. I care deeply about people, animals, the environment. So I had considered going to medical school, actually. So I was doing my PhD in Spain. I'm from Canada. But as I was trying to like switch programs in the university, I think there was a language barrier. And the admin didn't understand that I was already in the PhD program and I was trying to get into the pre-med or the med program in Spain. So in Canada, a bachelor's is a university, like it's undergrad. And in Spain, a bachelor's is high school. So I was trying to tell her, I'm like, no, but I'm already if I'm already finished, I have a bachelor's, I have a master's, I'm in the PhD program. Why won't you let me go into the thing? She's like, no, but you need like high school math. I was like, no, I've taught high school math. So it was a mess. And it was just really frustrating. Then I ended up getting pregnant. And so I was like, maybe medical school is not the best route to go right now. Yeah. And then I stumbled on medical writing as a really cool, like in between. And so it allows me to have my foot still in academia and still use my expertise, but not necessarily be at the bench.
Mm,
One of the things I realized is that one of my favorite parts of being a researcher was the communication part, or the like doing the literature review and then kind of synthesizing all the information, putting it all together so you can explain it to somebody else, or making illustrations, right? And so that's what I've incorporated into my business, into my agency today.
that's really cool. So you get to do a little bit of both. Seems like you're getting the best of both worlds, or am I
Exactly.
hearing that
Exactly.
wrong?
Yeah.
That's cool. So what is something, because I don't know a lot about medical writing. I've heard of that term, but I'm sure like the audience, they're not as familiar with it. So are there like lesser known things about medical writing or even getting into it that the audience should know?
Okay. Well, first off, there's like 5 different types of medical writing. So there's scientific publications, which is the one that I kind of gravitated towards since that's what I had the most experience in. Regulatory, which is submitting these essential formal documents about like clinical study reports, clinical study protocols to the FDA or whatever regulatory agency to get those drugs approved, drugs or medical devices approved. There's patient communications. There's continuing medical education, which is for how doctors, obviously, and doctors and nurses like keep up their training, like and make sure they're up to date with all the newest practices. And there's copywriting. Yeah, like copywriting for pharmaceuticals. So those are kind of like the main branches of medical writing. And then within each one, you can kind of like subspecialize too or
I'm
niche
sure.
down further. Yeah. And so you can niche by therapeutic area or by topic, right? So I focused on reproductive medicine during my PhD. So my niche is reproductive medicine because I have a huge like passion for that. And then within that, you can also have niche by deliverable. So the type of work that you're doing. So in my case, it's scientific manuscripts, right? Or I've done also advisory board reports. Advisory board reports are essentially, it's not technically part of scientific publications. It's one of the other branches of medical writing, but it's a really cool opportunity. So you essentially go to meetings with pharmaceutical companies, like the marketing team of the pharmaceutical company, and a group of physicians, a group of specialists. Example, gastroenterologists or rheumatologists, right? So there's 10 of them, like the top prescribing ones they usually find, and they get them in the same room. And then the pharmaceutical company essentially wants to get their insights, their experience. So like what are patients like resisting to, like all the questions to essentially help out their marketing, right? So are the doctors comfortable prescribing this medication? Are the patients reluctant to take it because there's too many tests involved? Are there problems with the insurance? Like all those questions so the pharmaceutical company can support them and get the medication to more people.
Wow. It seems like there's a lot more into it than people realize.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of want to go back to what you said at the beginning when you're getting your PhD, like the long-term goal was to become a PI of a lab. And so I've had other PhDs on here in the past. And I think what it's a common thing with them and I think with everyone is that we often have like long-term goals and then we hit a point that realize that maybe what we thought we wanted isn't actually we wanted. And then there's this process that you go to. And I know you kind of talked about it, like you wanted to transition to medical school and the whole confusion with the language barrier and all of that. So I'm curious, as you work with like I know you work a lot with different entrepreneurs. Is that something that you've seen about kind of like lack of clarity as they kind of come in to either entrepreneurship or maybe different things they're doing? And I didn't know if that was something you helped them with to help guide them, or if I'm just totally asking a question that you
No, no,
don't
no.
really work with.
It's a
Yeah.
great question. So I don't think it's so much lack of clarity as maybe things happen and you realize that's not the best path for you,
Mm,
right? That you see because sometimes like nobody talks about medical writing, right? Like no guidance counselor in high school or college or university told me about medical writing.
Mhm.
right? They were like, yeah, you have the high grades. Like, you should be a vet. You should be a doctor, right? Or, those high academic or a university professor. Medical writing is one of those alternative paths that exists. It's been existing for decades. It's just nobody talks about it. Right. And so for me, one of the parts of becoming the university professor was also like a financial goal, right? Because I realized, I thought back then, back in 2016, when I was in my undergrad, I was like, as a university professor, I could be making 100K salary, right? And so for me, it was like not only making an impact, but also financial to be able to support my family and do all the things that, live a nice life.
Yeah.
And and then as the years passed, I realized, oh, well, maybe that's not the only way to make 100K. There's other options and still have that same impact and still teach and still do science, work in science and do all the things.
That's
Yeah.
good.
And in terms of my clients, I feel like a lot of my clients so have 30 years clinical research experience. Some have a PhD, 2 postdocs, like 10 years of lab management experience, right? And then they're pivoting because the main problem is in academia, you're underpaid and you feel like you're underpaid and undervalued, right? So those are core pain points that so many people relate to. And that's why they leave. Not because they don't like science or don't like working in the lab. It's because they realize or they feel like whoever their supervisor isn't, yeah, doesn't value them on their team.
Mm. I think that you're really hitting on something, and I think that's a core part of the show, IncrediPaul Leadership, how important leadership is. And a lot of times with the data is that people don't leave companies, they leave their leadership, they leave the environment. And
Absolutely.
when like you're talking about when they don't feel like they're valued all the time and effort they spend, then they want to look elsewhere. And that's where you come in.
Yeah. Well, actually, so there's the way I'm positioning my company is that so I have a competitor who focuses on the people just beginning to transition. So my company, I had gone through her program, her coaching program, and so my business is essentially focused as the obvious next step
Okay.
after that. So once you have clients or you've had like your first clients, your business is set up, at least the basics, then what? Right? Then
Okay.
you feel unsupported and you're like, you need that community and like that sounding board or someone there, right? Like in the lab, you have your colleagues. You could just turn around to your
Mhm.
friend and just ask, like, oh, what did you do in that experiment? Or, like, can you help me? But as an entrepreneur, especially working from home, you don't have that person, you don't have anybody sitting next to you most of the time. So it's a great space to ask those questions. Sometimes just get that validation. It's more the validation. And because we have all the answers within ourselves, we just need somebody to kind of mirror it back that, yes, you're on the right path, or no, you could be charging 10 times more for what you're doing. So it's, you don't know what you don't know. And so speaking to other people who have a little bit more experience they don't even have to be 10 years ahead of you. Just, you only have to be 10 steps ahead of your ideal client to be 100% service to them.
10 steps ahead of your ideal client to be 100% service. I feel like that was a bar right there. Yeah,
Wait.
mic drop right there. So that's good. So I'm thinking of a lot of my audience is more so like earlier stages. So they might be finishing
Mhm.
up their undergraduate degree or like starting their career, trying to determine what they want to do. I'm wondering, do you work with anyone in that area as far as some of the coaching or
Yeah.
is
Well,
it yeah,
my, sorry to cut you off.
go for it.
My core group programs. So I have a membership, which is like the kind of, I guess, beginner step. I have a recurring masterclass series, a monthly masterclass series. So that's a good place, the masterclass series, to kind of get those monthly insights. And it's a very affordable, like $17. Those I said what I essentially did was bundled up everything, all the core components, so thought leadership, like accounting, like everything that we should have learned in school. Like
It's coming
um
to here.
there's a lot of different things, but
Uh,
essentially all the components that they should have taught us in school in science, like important life lessons that you would need in entrepreneurship, and just like building an online presence, right? There's so many ways that you can leverage a personal brand. So for speaking, for hosting workshops, for consulting, right? It doesn't have to be medical writing. I don't promote myself as teaching medical writing. So I have that experience, but what I'm teaching is more the business aspects of it, right? So financial literacy, right? Like how to manage clients is more like how to scale a business rather than just
Okay.
like starting off and like just getting an LLC kind of thing, like that's not where
Okay. Okay.
I'm trying
No,
to teach.
that No, that makes sense because I know, especially right now, I think Gen Z more than ever wants to have more ownership of their career, and I think entrepreneurship is becoming more and more attractive. So understanding what it means and how to scale it up is really important. So I'm sure that you've learned some things in your entrepreneurship journey. I'm constantly learning things. I'm wondering for you, because a common thing I always say is that people think entrepreneurship is really glamorous. It's easier to be an entrepreneur, and they don't realize that I think I said this before, but people are like, oh, like quit your 9 to 5 so you can become an entrepreneur. But what they don't realize is that means you're just working 24/7. You're like always on the clock. Oh, but I mean, it's not like that forever, and then there's different processes and things you can put in place. But I'm curious, as you're working with these people, like maybe they're starting off, they don't know these things, I guess, what are some key first steps that you're sharing with them, or just the reality of what it means to be an entrepreneur?
So I love that, right? Because I am very, very guilty of that. I'm like, it's so hard to balance that lifestyle. Like they sell you this dream of entrepreneurship, right? Like you said, for the freedom. But
Hmm.
then when you're in those initial growth stages, it's not so much freedom, especially if you're like super ambitious, high performing person. You're just like, I want it all and I want it yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
And so part of that is working a lot on mindset, right? And so why do you feel like you want it yesterday? Right? And that's the piece that takes a lot of working and it brings a lot of things to the surface. So there's a lot of shadow work involved in entrepreneurship. One of my mentors says entrepreneurship is personal development on crack. It's just like major, like you have to
Yeah,
go deep
like,
and there's a lot that comes up, right? Like innovations, but also triggers and it's
uh-huh.
it's a lot. And so yeah, just know that when you're first starting off, sometimes you do have to make some sacrifices, right? Because you have two ways you can pay for things, right? So in with cash, if you have enough money, then you can hire a coach and get there faster. If you don't have cash, which is often the like case with people coming straight out of school or like still with a whole bunch of student debt and I've been there, I know. You have time, right? So you have to invest your time into learning these things, but you have to keep in mind that how much is your time worth? My first year in business, I tracked how much time it took me to build my business, and I invested 800 hours of my time into building the foundations of my business, right? So that's a lot of time and a lot of
Yeah,
unpaid time, right? So if
yeah.
if now let's say my hourly rate or at the time my hourly rate should have been $100 an hour, that's 80 grand
Wow.
or like $8,000, sorry, right? I can't do math.
No, you're right the first time.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's a lot of money that you invest. So that's why sometimes it's worth investing in a coach or buying a template from somebody. Obviously, do your research because I've had good and bad experiences with buying templates from people.
Yeah.
You know, um, so buying that template is going to save you 40 hours, right? Sometimes it's worth dishing out $20 or whatever it is, $50 even for a template that's going to save you a week's a week of work. Sorry. And so that's part of what I'm trying to do with the Flask Foundation is building these like digital products and kind of essentially I've put a lot of thought into how I built my business and like my project management, like all my systems. As somebody with a PhD, we very meticulously analyze each step and like that spreadsheet is gold. I like to think so. Somebody else might not think about all those components that are really important and they've really been helpful for me. So what I'm doing is taking all my systems, essentially packaging them up and selling them as digital products, as templates, which is something anybody can do, right? And that's what kind of lured me into this whole coaching thing at the beginning of 2024 was that I realized I have a lot of pieces that I built for my why can't I package them and sell them as templates, right? If there's like, I want to say, I give the example of like a 22-year-old marketing bro with no PhD, right? And who didn't stay in school for 30 years. If they can do it, why can't I? And so that was a big piece. If like I was seeing other people doing it, why can't I?
Yeah.
And
If they can,
that goes for a lot of different things, right? Like leadership positions and just anything.
yeah. I like what you said. If they can do it, why can't you? Because I think it's a common thing that comes up in the show, this aspect of imposter syndrome and overcoming it, because there's a lot of times where we're telling ourselves things and we're saying we can't do things, a lot of limiting beliefs. And I know you kind of said at the beginning with the mindset really being the biggest obstacle that you need to overcome. I think it was Henry Ford that said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So it comes down to what you believe you can do and really come back to that mindset. But also I like what you mentioned with the templates, the mentorship, the coaching to accelerate it as opposed to, because it's like you said, it's the money or the time piece. Like if you have money, you can go in there and just spend it. Otherwise, you're gonna have to spend the time. And I would say kudos to you for tracking your time in the, at the beginning, even though that was not something I did. I'm still bad at tracking my time on things, but I'm doing better at delegating some things I know I shouldn't be doing. So
Yeah. I did that in 2023 and now I have no time to track my time now. Yeah. But yeah, it's a huge piece of it. So for example, like I said, 2023 was like my first full year in business. I started my medical writing business like mid 2022. And I was 3 months postpartum when that happened. So that's a
oh,
story. That's a whole other story um, of like grabbing opportunities when they come, right? But
yeah,
like when they hit you in the face, like
yeah,
you just have to take them. And so 2023 was a lot of me investing in building the foundations for my business. And 2024, now I had the capital, right? Or like the funds that I had saved from my medical writing agency. And when I wanted to build my coaching business, I got smart and I was like, okay, now I have this money. I can reinvest in myself, right? And so that was a whole other a mindset of, am I worthy of investing thousands of dollars in myself and taking this risk, right? Because, like I said, not too long ago, I was a student and I had lots of student debts. And so now taking $8,000 to invest in a mastermind weekend with seven-figure entrepreneurs, I was like, "Ugh." You know, I literally almost was sick when I pressed that checkout button. It was the most amount of money that I had ever spent at that time in one shot for 2 days, right? And once you press that checkout button, you're like, "Oh my god, there's no refunds, like, what if this lady is a fraud?" All of the questions, right? And then it turned out to be a life-changing weekend, and not in the way that I expected,
okay. Talk more about that because life changing, but not in the way that you expected.
right? Okay, so mastermind weekend, we expected the way this coach was promoting the mastermind weekend was she would have her eyes on our business. So I was already in one of her other high ticket coaching containers and it went really well. Like I saw she brought a lot of value. So I was like, okay, when she said she was going to have this mastermind, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be fantastic. If I can get her eyes and for her to just tell me, like to map it out, right? To just tell me, yes, do this, do this, do this, right? That's all I wanted. Um, that's what I and a lot of other people who attended were expecting because that's how she was marketing it.
Okay.
So we got to the weekend and the first day was, I think she also had some of her speakers had like dropped out. There was some drama behind the scenes. So she had to pick up the slack. So there was also some of that. So I recognize that,
Okay.
but it was a great conference, like very informative. So it was like a 2-day thing. So the Saturday was all like not lectures, but like her speaking, her and other experts speaking. And then the Sunday was the mastermind day. So
Okay.
a smaller group, like a VIP group kind of that we met on a yacht actually. And so the first day there was a lot of kind of like energetic or like that mindset work that she was trying to tap into. So like attachment theory, Dr. Morgan Anderson, she spoke on attachment theory. Then there was the main coach, she spoke about like different systems. Like it was very informative. And then the next day, how she kicked it off, excuse me, was what was your biggest takeaway from the day before?
Okay.
And so that kind of like set the tone for how the day went,
Okay.
essentially. And it shifted the path because what we ended up discovering as we kind of like each spoke our turn was that we had a lot of like inner child wounds that came up the day before,
Wow.
right? Because that comes up in entrepreneurship.
It
And
does.
one of the things, like you said, so you start your business for freedom, right? But in those early first stages, there's work that's involved. There is work. I'm not going to hide it. I don't hide it. And so one of the questions she asked was 5 years down, 5 or 10 years down the line from now, how would you feel if your business is still how it is today? Like if you're still, for me, it showed up as like, if I'm still working 36 hours a day on my business, right? And I was like, I don't want that because I'm missing out on time with my kids, right? With my family, because I'm making the sacrifice to build something because I believe in it so much, right? And so that was a big thing that came up for me. And we also discovered that a lot of people had fear of being seen, right? So we're not promoting ourselves on social media or just marketing in general the way we should because we're scared of showing up for many different reasons,
Mm,
right? You're scared of what your old colleague might say or your old supervisor or like your friend from high school, right?
yeah.
It's real and it was vulnerable and transformative, absolutely transformative. And these in-person retreats, until you've experienced one where everybody feels safe enough to be vulnerable and share these like deep fear, you can't explain that to somebody. It's hard to
Yeah.
explain to somebody.
Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. So that's really powerful. I understand like what you were expecting versus like what you got out of it, but it seems like it was definitely deeper or more meaningful what you
Yeah,
got.
absolutely. And so, okay, it was also, yeah, like that meaningful piece of like being vulnerable and having these processing these emotions in a room full of people who get you. But also we made a lot of connections, right? Because you're bonding over these traumas and fears now.
Yeah.
You're realizing everybody has similar issues. And so we set goals. Part of the mastermind day was to set goals of what we wanted for the future for our business. And I had an idea that I wanted to host my own retreat with the ladies that were sitting beside me because I just felt like that there was a connection there. And a couple months later, here we are. I am planning a retreat, my own retreat with the ladies, right? And so it's beautiful to see how these in-person retreats can transform your business. So another piece of it was for me to learn to let go of perfectionism, right?
Mm,
And I'm sure you that's probably something that comes up a lot.
definitely, definitely relatable. Yes.
And so one of the biggest takeaway I had from that was that when I got home, I needed to hire experts to help me to delegate and to build my team so I don't have to do it all myself.
Mm,
And maybe I rushed into it because I was so motivated.
yeah.
And I hired people who may have not been the right fit, and that's okay. Because entrepreneurship, you win some and you lose some. And I'm willing to accept that maybe that was a mistake or in part a mistake because it also helped me again get over that fear of being seen. So essentially it was a social media marketing agency that I had hired to help me amplify my social media presence. And so it was one that seemed reputable on Instagram and the call went well. It seemed like they had their
And
stuff
everything.
together.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it just wasn't what I expected. Like the quality was just not there.
Okay. Uh, I can relate to that in certain areas. So that I think that what you're hitting on is really crucial, like in entrepreneurship, but just
in
in
life. Yeah.
life too, like even in your career, because I think when I talk to people, because I do a lot of coaching more so on the leadership side of things, and people are really afraid to be seen because of what they think people are going to say about them. But and it's definitely a process of mindset. What I have to remind them is that anyone that is saying anything negative about you is not doing anything themselves
Yes.
because they're afraid and they're just trying to drag you down because they don't want you to be elevated. But majority of the time, the people, when you start talking about things and sharing stuff, there's going to be other people who are cheering you on because they're in the same boat. They don't see you as competition. If anything, they want to collaborate with you on different things. And it's when you step out and share what you're doing that you have opportunity to meet other like-minded people. Otherwise, you're just isolated.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. So many thoughts on that. Okay. So something one of my mentors told me is that it's selfish of you to hold your knowledge in and not share it with the world,
Mm.
right? Because we have so many, like part of one of the core values or like pillars of my business is to bring out all the gifts and skills people have from the accumulation of experiences they've had in their lives. So I've had, at one point during my master's, I was working 5 jobs, right? And
Wait,
people,
5 jobs and you were doing your master's? What?
the master's was one of them. Yeah, yeah, okay. That's a story for another time.
Okay, we were gonna have to come back to that, but go ahead.
But just working 5 jobs at a time, you accumulate a lot of different experiences in a
I'm
short period
sure,
of time.
sure.
and and so when I got to like my PhD, people are like, "Oh my, how did you do all these things?" And I was like, "Yeah, I was a chef. I was like, I worked as an accountant, like assistant. I did um, construction on the weekends. Like it was just like a whole bunch, like all over the map." But I was like, I don't care. I'm multi-passionate, and I needed to do what I needed to do. I needed to pay my school. I was living on my own. I had to pay rent somehow, and I was not going to resort to like OnlyFans or whatever, selling feet pictures. All the things.
OnlyFans.
Yeah. Um, so I tried to go about it like the reasonable,
Yeah.
respectful route.
Yeah. Oh my
um,
gosh.
no, I was tutoring as well. I was TAing 2 or 3 different courses in my like department, university department. I was working full time at a vet clinic as well and trying to juggle my experiments. So there was a lot going on, and
Yeah.
that's process working through why I did that is a whole other subject as well. But where was I going with this? Yeah, so just like everybody has each individual has a unique set of experiences, and you can tie all of those back into your business, right? So for me, working as an accountant assistant, working like, what was it? Accounts receivables back in 2012. Well, that gave me a good basis for how to do the bookkeeping for my business. Going to art school also back in 2012 and I have a college degree in digital arts. Well, I'm bringing that into medical illustration now, right? So it all comes full circle if you want it to. Like some people have the mentality of, oh, I just wasted my time. I wasted all these years and it didn't serve me in any way. Well, no, because you don't want it to serve you in any way. There are ways. You have to like find the lesson in what in the experience and like how is that going to help me in the future or what I'm doing now.
Connecting the dots. Semi-random question. Is there anything that you haven't done? Because it seems like you mentioned chef, construction, accounting assistant, like
I love-
all these things. Like, what is the most random job that you think you've had? Or maybe it was random at the time, but maybe connected to some things that help with. Because I know you mentioned some of the accounting stuff.
Yeah. Oh my God. I've held like so many different jobs. I used to be a cashier at Costco. Well, that taught me about like rapid customer service.
Yeah.
um,
Shout out to Costco.
I used to work in the framing department at Michael's, right? Like making custom frames. And that too taught me about like efficiency. So I would just like, when I got in my zone, I can like we had to assemble the frames. Like they would come in pieces from the warehouse kind of thing. We had to put them together with the customer's art and then give it to them. Um, and I was the fastest one at doing it. And I remember, yeah, like I was just like one of the, I feel like skills a lot of PhDs have, or I don't know. I don't know if I should generalize, but
Go for it.
is that we're curious and we're versatile. You don't know how versatile that can be, right? So like the ability to learn a skill quickly, right? And pick up the cash, pick up this new accounting software, pick up anything. It could be anything, but you have to be willing to accept the opportunity when it comes to learn that skill and
Yeah.
then kind of reflect, like now that you've done all those, one of the core pieces of like entrepreneurship is figuring out like your value proposition. So like what makes you
Mhm.
different than somebody else, right? And so I did this spreadsheet using it's called the STAR approach, and it's an interview tactic that they use. So you make columns, and in the first columns you write down the situation. So in my case it was like the job, right? So what job did I have? The next one is the task. So T for task. So what specific task obviously related to what you want to do while you're creating this table? The action you took and the result. And so doing this exercise, I compiled all the Costco, the Michaels, the being a TA, like all the things that I did. And what the overarching theme was is that I've always been a teacher. I've been teaching for 13 years at different levels and like communicating, right? So working at the vet clinic, one of the kind of things that I took the initiative to do was one, organize like 30 years worth of like x-rays that nobody had dared touch. Like they were all just shoved in a closet. And I was like, okay, but why are we keeping x-rays of animals that passed away 20 years ago? We don't like, we can archive them, right? And so make
Yeah.
it more efficient for everyone. And then I also took the initiative to translate a guide for like puppy care. So, right. So it was in French and I was translating to English, I believe. And yeah. And so the overarching theme of everything was like education, communication, and like efficiency. Like building systems, like seeing how to organize something for it to run smoothly. And so
No,
that's what I
that's
bring to
really,
my
really powerful.
yeah.
I work with the STAR method a lot because I do a lot of career coaching, whether it's a STAR method or CAR method, some people call it. And I've never seen it used in that way. That's revolutionary, I think, to just like tie your experiences together and see like what are the things that you're bringing to the table in really whatever you're doing, especially in entrepreneurial sense.
Yeah. So I had actually done it because it was part of an interview. I was approached for a marketing position, a marketing manager position, back at the end of 2023, I think it was. Yeah, end of 2023. Um, and I had no marketing experience, but I knew like the product very well because I was an avid user of it. So I was like, I am your ideal client. Like I know how they think, like how they want to use the software. So I bring that extra layer of like how to market it. And yeah, they needed like, it was like a rigorous interview process. I made it to like the top 2 candidates out of like hundreds of people. Um, and then finally they chose somebody with more business experience. And I was like, you guys knew this from the beginning. But anyways, one of them, yeah, I feel like the decision came from higher up, but
Yeah,
um,
that usually
the
does.
hiring manager, one of the things he told me, I think he was rooting for me because he saw like the potential and he's like, marketing is a soft skill. Like anyone can learn marketing. And he's like, if you have like other skills, like I can teach you marketing. And sometimes industry jobs, like that's what they want. They want somebody who doesn't have the experience so they can teach them the right way. Because if you have learned the wrong way, then it's hard to undo.
Yes.
So yeah, that was all part of that interview process. They needed like a 10-year, one of the interviews was a 10-year history of like my work experience. So that's why I compiled that whole table to help me prepare
Well,
for the interview. Um, but yeah.
That's really powerful. We've been going for a while, and I feel
Right,
like
yeah.
we could dive into a lot of different
We need
other
another one.
things. I have to run it back, but is there anything that you haven't shared either about you, your experiences, or even thinking about like the people listening to this episode that you want to share as we close things out?
Can I make a shameless plug?
You can definitely make a shameless. I didn't know if you wanted to share anything before the shameless plug.
It's a freebie. It's a freebie, so it can help
Yeah,
people
yeah, yeah.
compile the list of 60 STEM skills essentially that you can leverage. So either on your LinkedIn resume, on your website, however you're marketing yourself. And at the end, so I have like the 60 skills, and in the same guide, I put 10 tips on how to leverage those 60 skills into or how to bundle them into high value offers. So if anybody's interested, you can find it on my website.
So share what your website is.
So it's flasfoundation.com, or it's also on in my link in bio on my Instagram or socials. Yeah, and FLAS stands for the love of arts and science, because, like I said, I'm bringing it all together.
I was wondering if this stood for something, for the love of arts and sciences. I love that. That's really good. And definitely we'll have a link to it in the show notes. So just so they can stay connected with you on LinkedIn, go to your website. Is there any other ways you want them to stay connected with you, or any other things you're doing that you want to make sure the audience knows about?
I mean, if you're interested, like I have, like I said, the membership. I have masterclass series, a membership group coaching program, which is closed right now, but it might reopen by the time this is airing.
So I'll make sure I'll get that information from you. So like when this episode comes out, that women can sign up for, make sure it's clear. No, no, you're good. I just thought it was funny. It's like, oh, you could have come, but no, it's for
Oh,
women.
yeah. It's the morning. I haven't had my coffee yet. I'm sorry.
I would say you did really well for not having your coffee through this whole interview. So no worries there. But Rosalba, thank you so much for taking the time to share your experiences. Just share your passion for what you do. It's very clear that you're passionate about what you do. And I'm going to go back to what you even talk about, your different experiences, really connecting the dots. I think oftentimes people think some experiences are not worthwhile or they're wasting time. But I think it comes back to what you talked about with the mindset thing too, is just seeing how this led you to where you are now. Because all these different things, we're experiencing things, some more positive or negative, but if we take it from a lens of learning, it can always help us get to the next level.
Absolutely. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. Yeah, it's always
Awesome.
about finding the lessons in whatever circumstance. Sometimes, you know, life throws some curveballs at you, and in the moment, it's not something that's fun to deal with, and you have to learn have the emotional intelligence to bounce back, right? And find, like, take that higher perspective and find what the lesson is to move forward.
Absolutely. Emotional intelligence is so key. I've shared it on the podcast before and don't have time to share deeper about it now, but there's definitely things that happen in the moment and you're like, what is going on? How am I going to get through this? That was majority of last year for me. But as you get through it and then you can learn from it and things can end up a lot better on the other side. But I
Yeah.
think where you're about to say something.
No, and the more you practice that, right? Like, not that we want you to have bad experiences, but bad things happen all the
Oh
time.
yeah, they do. They
And
do.
and the more you learn how, like, you work on your emotional intelligence, the faster you can bounce back. Right? So sometimes it does. Like, there's things that happen that do take 2, 3 hours of your day, and you're just like, "Ugh, I can't do anything because I'm so angry or so frustrated that this happened," and you're still like in that angry phase. But once you move past that, like that, you need to shorten that gap,
Yes.
realize that sometimes, like, it's not even your fault. Most of the time,
No.
it's not even your fault, right? It's just
No.
like other people and their lived experiences, and they might be projecting onto you, whatever. And yeah, so you need to have me back because we can dive into all these topics.
Yeah, I think I'll probably have you back because I do a talk on resilience and it's the first thing I talk about is that failure is inevitable, like making mistakes. And it can feel negative to start off like that, but when you have a mindset that this is just a part of life. The path to success is paved with failure. So when you understand it's a part of life, you're not running away from failure. You're looking for more opportunities, and failure is just like, okay, I failed. I'm going to move on to the next thing, as opposed to failure and setbacks being something that keep you down for hours, days, sometimes years at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also like how much of your power are you giving away to somebody else to have that effect on you? Right. So it's like taking that power back and saying, well, no, this person's just mad at life and they're going to continue being miserable whether I'm there or not. Right. And so I know it's silly, but that's
No, it's
how I
true.
got through certain situations with some toxic coworkers, is that you just do you, and
Yeah.
I'm going to go on my path and enjoy my life.
Yes. That's all you can do now. I mean, yeah, I'll stop it there because my mind is racing about other things, but I want to be respectful of your time. And I think I'll definitely have to have you back on. But just turning to the audience, I know you got something from Dr. Rosalba Lopez's story, just whether it's maybe you're doing something right now that you always thought you wanted to do, and then you're in the moment, you learn something else that you didn't realize before that you're more passionate about, or something that you want to pursue. Maybe the thing that you wanted to do, there are aspects of it that you're not really fond of. So I think there is we talk about like unlearning things, but learning about what you want to do as you come across it, that you can pivot, try something new, try something different. Don't be afraid to fail, like you're just talking about, and you too can be incredible.
Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible. Incredible.